I sat at the kitchen table, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence as I stared at the crumpled receipt in my hand. It was from a deposit I'd placed for Kayla's birthday celebration, a lavish dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant, complete with a custom cake and decorations I'd spent weeks planning. I'd envisioned myself there, raising a glass to toast her 19th year, smiling as she blew out the candles, surrounded by her friends and our family. That vision had kept me going through the late nights at work, the extra shifts I'd taken to cover the cost. But now, that receipt felt like a mocking relic of a dream that had slipped through my fingers. It started a few weeks ago when Angela, my wife of 6 years, casually mentioned that Kayla had finalized the guest list for her party. I'd assumed my name was on it. No question about that. I'd been the one footing the bill, after all. But then I saw the post on Instagram, a screenshot of the digital invite Kayla had sent out to her inner circle. My name wasn't there. Instead, there was Mike's, her biological father, a man who drifted in and out of her life like a ghost, leaving me to pick up the pieces each time he disappeared. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't invited. I wasn't wanted. I couldn't shake the image of that invite from my mind. I scrolled through Kayla's social media later that night, my thumb hovering over the screen as I stumbled across a photo she'd posted days before, a throwback of her and Mike at some amusement park when she was 7, captioned, "Can't wait to see my favorite guy soon." Favorite guy. The words clawed at me, tearing open a wound I didn't even know I had. For years, I've been the one driving her to school, helping her with algebra late into the night, buying her that beat-up Toyota when she turned 17, so she could have some independence. I'd paid her tuition at the community college, covered her rent in that tiny apartment she loved, all without a second thought. I never asked her to call me Dad. I didn't need the title. I just wanted to be there, to matter. And yet, here I was, sidelined for a man who'd barely bothered to show up. The hurt festered for days, a quiet ache that grew into something sharper, something I couldn't ignore. I made a decision then, one I knew would change everything. I canceled the payments. All of them. The car insurance, the tuition, the rent. I pulled the plug on every dime I'd been pouring into Kayla's life. I gave her a month to figure out, a buffer to adjust to this new reality. It wasn't impulsive. I'd thought it through, lying awake at night, wrestling with the weight of it. I wasn't trying to punish her. Not really. I just couldn't keep giving to someone who didn't see me, who didn't value what I'd done. If I was invisible to her, then maybe it was time my support disappeared too. The fallout came fast. Angela noticed the bank statements first, the missing transfers that had been routine for years. She confronted me in the living room, her voice tight with disbelief. "What did you do?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for an explanation I wasn't sure I could give. I told her about the party, about Mike, about how Kayla had chosen him over me. I expected her to understand, at least a little, but instead, her face hardened. "You're being spiteful," she said. "You're going to ruin her future over a birthday party." Her words stung, but they didn't sway me. Spiteful? Maybe. But it wasn't just about the party. It was about 6 years of pouring my heart into a role I thought mattered, only to find out I'd been a placeholder all along. Kayla's reaction was worse. I called her the next day, my hands trembling as I gripped the phone. I wanted to hear from her, to understand why she'd made that choice. "I just wanted my real dad there," she said, her voice flat, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Real dad. The phrase echoed in my head long after the call ended. I'd never tried to replace Mike. I knew I couldn't. But I'd been there, day in and day out, while he'd been a memory she clung to hear her say that so casually, like I was nothing more than a stand-in, broke something inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just hung up and sat there, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of my irrelevance settle in. The house turned into a battlefield after that. Angela barely spoke to me, her silence louder than any argument. Kayla texted me once, a curt message about how unfair I was being, how I was ruining everything. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I'd spent years building a bridge to her, only to watch her burn it down for someone who hadn't earned it? That I felt like a fool for thinking I could ever be enough? The tension seeped into every corner of our home. a thick fog of resentment that made it hard to breathe. A few days later, I saw the photos from the party online. Kayla beaming next to Mike, his arms slung around her shoulders, the cake I'd paid for sitting untouched in the background. I stared at that image for longer than I should have, letting the hurt wash over me. I'd wanted so badly to be part of that moment, to feel like I belonged in her life. Instead, I was on the outside, looking at a family I'd never truly been part of. Angela tried to mediate, sitting me down one evening with a cup of coffee that went cold between us. "She's young," she said softly. "She doesn't see how much you've done. Give her time." I nodded, but my heart wasn't in it. Time wouldn't erase the sting of being excluded, the clarity of knowing where I stood. Angela thought I was the bad guy, and maybe I was. Maybe cutting Kayla off made me petty, vengeful, all the things she'd accused me of. But as I sat there, replaying the last 6 years in my mind, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief amid the pain. I'd given everything I had, money, time, love, and now I was done. Not out of anger, but out of acceptance. I didn't know what would happen next. Kayla might come around, or she might not. Angela might forgive me, or this might fracture us too. But for the first time in years, I stopped trying to prove my worth to someone who didn't see it. I folded the receipt and tucked it into a drawer, a quiet reminder of the line I'd drawn. I wasn't a villain in my own story. Not yet. I was just a man who'd finally realized he couldn't buy a place in a heart that didn't want him there.